The night cracked open with a scream, sharp, raw, primal. Ava spun around in the dim alley behind the shelter, her heart leaping into her throat. A woman, mid-30s, disheveled and breathless, clutched her belly, her clothes soaked in rain and panic. "Please, help me. It's coming," she gasped. Ava froze for a half-second. Then instinct surged. She dropped her bag, knelt beside the woman, and shouted into the storm. "Someone call 911. No one was around. The wind drowned everything. Ava's hands shook, but she focused. "You're going to be okay," she said, cradling the stranger's head. The baby was coming fast. Ava remembered her CPR certification and calming mothers at school, but this was different. This was life at the edge of chaos. As thunder cracked above, Ava delivered the baby under a flickering street lamp, holding her breath with each contraction, fighting fear. And then, it cried. A baby girl. Ava trembled, staring down at the tiny life in her arms, unaware she had just brought her own blood into the world. Inside the ambulance, Ava sat stiffly, her hands still trembling, her coat soaked through and clinging to her skin. The baby had been taken into a neonatal incubator beside her, and the mother, now unconscious, lay strapped to a stretcher, oxygen mask in place. "You did well," one of the EMTs said, but Ava barely heard it. Her eyes were locked on the baby's face, tiny, pink, impossibly fragile. A small birthmark beneath the left ear made her blink. Her sister had that same mark, or did she? It had been over 2 decades. The thought vanished as fast as it arrived. I couldn't let her die," Ava murmured. Rain still beat against the ambulance windows. The ride to the hospital felt eternal. Her mind buzzed with adrenaline and questions. Who was that woman? Why did it feel familiar? At the hospital, Ava paced outside the maternity ward, her coat folded over her arm, hair still damp. A nurse had taken her statement. She had no answers. She didn't even know the woman's name. She came out of nowhere, Ava told them. She just appeared. The nurse had nodded, professional, efficient. "We'll do everything we can." Ava leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of it. Her gaze landed on the nursery window. Dozens of babies swaddled in identical blankets. But one stood out. Her. The one she had delivered. She pressed her hand to the glass. That birthmark again. It tugged at something buried deep. Was this coincidence? Or something else clawing to the surface? The next morning, Ava sat at her kitchen table, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. Her apartment was quiet, cluttered with paperwork and school files. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated. "Hello? Is this Ava Monroe?" a shaky voice asked. "Yes, speaking." Silence. "Then you were the one who helped me last night. I remember your voice." Ava's breath caught. It was her. The woman. "How are you?" Ava asked gently. "Alive. Thanks to you," the woman whispered. "I need to see you." The call ended abruptly. Ava sat frozen. Who was she? Why the urgency in her voice? Ava stared out the window at the overcast sky. Something strange was unfolding. They met again that afternoon in a quiet hospital recovery room. The woman's name was Elise. She looked fragile but alert, her hair brushed back, a hospital gown hugging her thin frame. Ava sat beside the bed, uneasy but curious. "You saved me," Elise said softly. "No," Ava replied. "You saved yourself. I was just there." Elise shook her head. "No, you were meant to be there." She turned, lifting her arm to reveal a locket hanging from her wrist. Ava gasped. That locket. Her mother had one just like it. A matching set. "Where did you get that?" Ava asked, voice barely audible. Elise blinked, confused. "It was with me when I was adopted. I never knew where it came from." The air between them turned electric. Something ancient, broken, was about to be pieced back together. Elisa's locket still haunted Ava. She held it that evening, comparing it to an old photo she had tucked inside a memory box, her mother wearing the same pendant, cradling a baby. Ava's hands trembled as she studied it under lamplight. Her mother had died when she was 10, taking secrets to the grave. Ava had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes. No siblings. No answers. But Elise, she couldn't be just anyone. Ava scanned the edges of the photograph again. Scribbled faintly on the back was a date and a name. Elise, June, 1990. Her stomach dropped. Elise was born the same year. Ava remembered her mother being pregnant. A baby who didn't make it. But what if she did? Ava sank onto the floor, realization crashing into her. She hadn't just delivered a stranger's child, she had delivered her sister's baby. The next day, Ava stood in the local records office, her breath fogging against the cold glass partition. The clerk, an older man with tired eyes, squinted at the request form. "You're looking for birth records from 1990? Ava nodded. "Elise Carter, born in June. Any adoption files too." He shuffled into the back room, and Ava fidgeted, heart pounding. Minutes later, he returned with a yellowed envelope. "Found her file? But some of it's sealed." Ava opened it carefully. The birth mother's name was redacted, but the hospital name matched her own birth certificate. Coincidence again? She doubted it. She left the office clutching the file like a bomb. Elise had been born at St. Mercy. So had she. Same month. Same year. Ava's mind reeled. She needed to talk to someone who remembered. Back at the hospital, Ava found Nurse Ramirez, one of the few remaining staff from the maternity ward's old days. A gentle woman with silver hair and kind eyes, she listened as Ava recounted the details. "You worked here in 1990, right?" Ava asked. Ramirez nodded. "Yes. A chaotic time. We had an influx of private adoptions, hush-hush cases." Ava leaned in. "Do you remember a woman named Catherine Monroe? My mother?" Ramirez's eyes widened. "Yes, sweet girl. There was something strange. She came in late, said the baby didn't make it, but I always suspected something else." Ava's throat tightened. "Do you remember what happened to the baby?" Ramirez hesitated, then whispered, "The baby was healthy. But a man came that night, powerful, wealthy, took the child. We never saw her again." Ava's heart cracked open. Elise hadn't been lost. She had been taken. Ava wandered the hospital parking lot in a daze, gripping her coat against the sharp wind. Her mind flashed through years of half-memories, her mother's late nights, whispered arguments, the cold silence that followed. And now Ramirez's words burned into her brain. A man came and took the baby. Who was he? And why? She climbed into her car, sat motionless. Then a memory hit. An old campaign poster from when she was a child. Senator Graham Monroe. Family, integrity, legacy. Her father, her supposed father. Ava's hands clenched the steering wheel. He had died in disgrace, amid rumors of financial misconduct. But maybe the corruption went deeper. Maybe Elise wasn't just stolen, she was erased. Ava started the engine. It was time to dig into her father's past. Ava sat at the town library's microfilm station, the buzz of the old machine a low drone in the background. She flipped through headlines from the early 90s. There he was, Senator Graham Monroe, smiling, charismatic, untouchable. But buried beneath the bold fonts were whispers. Unrecorded donations linked to private adoptions. Governor's office dodges paternity scandal. Ava's breath caught. She clicked through faster. One article featured a grainy photo. Her mother, much younger, standing outside St. Mercy, visibly pregnant, flanked by Monroe's aides. Her fingers trembled. He hadn't just been her father. He had orchestrated the lie. Ava pushed away from the machine, heart thudding like a war drum. If Elise was taken to protect his image, What else had he buried? Ava sat across from Elise, in a quiet cafe, tucked off a side street. Elise looked stronger now, her baby asleep in a carrier beside her. Ava cleared her throat. Elise, I think we're sisters. Elise's eyes narrowed, searching Ava's face for the truth. Ava placed the locket on the table and slid over the hospital photo. That's our mother. I found this in a newspaper archive. My father, he had you taken. Elise stared at the photo, color draining from her face. I was adopted by a judge, cold man, strict. I always wondered who gave me away. But this, he took me? Ava nodded. To protect a career. To erase scandal. Elise whispered, so you didn't just deliver my baby, you brought me back to the family I lost. The weight between them was thick with pain and recognition. Something broken had begun to reassemble. Elise returned to her adoptive home that evening to confront the man she had called father. Judge Richard Calloway stood in his study, back to the fireplace, stoic and unreadable. Why didn't you ever tell me the truth? Elise demanded, holding out the photo. Calloway didn't flinch. Because the truth was dangerous. Elise shook. Dangerous for whom? His eyes narrowed. For all of us, your biological father was powerful and reckless. That baby, your birth, would have destroyed his campaign. I was paid to raise you cleanly, without ties. Elise's voice cracked. You let me believe I was abandoned. He didn't respond. Elise turned away, tears threatening to spill. He hadn't protected her. He had purchased her silence. Ava stared at the last known address of her late father's aide, Lelion Brackett. The man had vanished after the scandal broke, but a private database pointed her to a run-down house on the edge of town. She knocked. Nothing. She knocked again. A shadow moved behind the curtain. I just want answers, Ava called out. The door creaked open. A thin, gaunt man in his 60s stood there, eyes bloodshot, paranoia in every line. I knew you'd come one day, he muttered. Ava stepped inside. Dust coated everything. Did you take my sister from the hospital? He sat, rubbing his temples. I was told it was for the good of the party. He didn't want a scandal. Ava's fists clenched. So you stole a child. Brackett's eyes met hers. I obeyed orders. Doesn't mean I sleep at night. He handed her a sealed envelope. He wrote this before he died. Ava stared at it like it might explode. Ava returned home and opened the letter under a flickering kitchen light. Her father's handwriting was shaky. To my daughter Ava, if you ever find this. The letter was a confession. He had known about Elise. Her mother had begged him not to give the baby away, but pressure from party officials, and his own ambition, drove him to make the deal. I chose my image over my family, the letter read. I've regretted it every day. Ava couldn't hold back the tears. Her mother had fought. Her father had caved. Elise had been caught in the middle of a life constructed from lies. The words blurred as Ava whispered, I'm sorry, Elise. We were never meant to be apart. Later that night, Ava and Elise sat on Ava's balcony wrapped in blankets, the city quiet below. Elise rocked her baby gently, her face lit by the soft orange glow of streetlights. He wrote to you? Elise asked. Ava nodded, holding the letter between them. He confessed everything. He was weak, but he knew what he did. Elise nodded slowly. It doesn't undo what happened, but it's something. Ava looked at her sister. We lost time, but we're here now. Elise's lips curved into a faint smile. We're family, Ava. No one can take that again. The baby stirred in her arms, and Ava leaned over, touching the infant's cheek. A small red birthmark beneath the left ear. A full circle, sealed in silence, and finally, truth. Ava flipped through the old letter again, her fingers smudging the ink. Something gnawed at her. Why had no one else known? Why had Lena, her closest friend, practically family, not said anything? That night, Ava invited Lena over under the pretense of catching up. Lena arrived, casual and cheerful. You okay? You look like you haven't slept. Ava didn't answer. She slid the locket and the letter onto the table. You told me my mother lost the baby, that there was nothing to find. Lena froze, her face draining. Ava, she whispered. You knew? Ava's voice was hollow. Lena collapsed into the chair. Your mother begged me to protect you, said you didn't need the burden of knowing. Ava stared in disbelief. You let me believe I was alone. Lena's eyes welled up. I did what I thought was right. Ava stood, heart cracking. You were supposed to be my family. Lena followed Ava out onto the fire escape, night wind whipping around them. I didn't want you growing up hating your father, she said, voice breaking. Ava stared into the distance. So, you let me grow up hating myself instead. Lena's face twisted in pain. You were a kid, Ava. Your mom was dying. She asked me to protect your heart. Ava turned slowly. By hiding the truth? Lena nodded faintly. Yes, because I thought if you knew, it would destroy you. Ava leaned against the railing. But the lie nearly did. Silence fell. Far below, the city buzzed, oblivious. Lena stepped forward. You found her, Elise. You did what none of us had the courage to do. Ava whispered. And now I have to finish it. Lena looked down. Then I'll help you, if you'll let me. Ava didn't reply. But she didn't walk away either. The next day, Ava met Elise at the courthouse steps. Elise held her baby close, her face etched with quiet resolve. You really want to go public with this? Elise asked. Ava nodded. He built a legacy on lies, and we've lived in the ruins of it. Elise's grip on the baby tightened. If this comes out, it won't just be history. It'll be war. Ava pulled a folder from her bag. Hospital records, adoption documents, the letter. Then let's start it. Together. Reporters gathered near the entrance, drawn by anonymous tips Lena had helped plant. Elise took a deep breath. I never thought the day would come where I'd walk toward the truth instead of away from it. Ava gave a thin smile. Let them try to bury us again. We already crawled out once. Together they mounted the steps. Inside a press conference room, buzzing with tension, Ava took the podium. Cameras flashed. Elise stood off to the side, baby in her arms, Lena behind her. Ava spoke into the mic, her voice steady. My name is Ava Monroe. I was raised an orphan, told I had no family. That was a lie. My sister Elise Carter was taken from our mother at birth by order of Senator Graham Monroe. My father. The crowd erupted. Reporters barked questions. Do you have proof? Why now? Ava held up the documents. Because justice delayed is still justice. Because our story was stolen from us. And we're taking it back. Elise stepped forward, lifting her child into view. And we won't let this happen to another generation. Ava's gaze swept the room. The truth matters, even when it's ugly. Flashes lit up their faces. The silence afterward was thunderous. That night, the story went national. News anchors called it a political bombshell buried for decades. Talk shows dissected the ethics, the legacy, the betrayal. But for Ava and Elise, the noise faded behind the real moment. The two of them sitting in Elise's apartment, baby between them, watching the news coverage with blank stares. Do you regret it? Elise asked. Ava shook her head. I regret not doing it sooner. Elise nodded. Me too. The baby gurgled softly, and they both looked down. She'll know the truth, Ava said. All of it. Elise smiled tiredly. And she'll know what it means to fight for it. Ava reached across the couch, resting her hand gently on her sister's. We're not done. But we're not broken either. The baby cooed in reply, as if agreeing. The next morning, Ava stood outside the office of Charles Redmond, her late father's former campaign manager, now a board member at a prominent political foundation. The receptionist gave her a sharp once-over before waving her in. Redmond, gray-haired and immaculately dressed, looked up from his desk. "Miss Monroe, I was expecting you." Ava sat, sliding the letter across. "You knew everything. You were there when they took her." Redmond studied her coolly. "What's your endgame here?" Ava's jaw clenched. "Truth, consequences." He sighed, almost amused. "The man's dead, Ava. Let him rest." She snapped. "Elise didn't get to rest. My mother died protecting this secret. You get no peace while we suffer." Redmond leaned back, unshaken. "You're playing with fire." Ava stood, fire in her eyes. "Then I hope it burns clean through you." The war had begun. Later that day, Ava met with a journalist, Naomi Sharp, a sharp, relentless investigator from a major outlet. They sat in a quiet corner of a public library, documents spread between them. "We're going to publish this," Naomi said, eyes scanning the folder. "But you need to know, this story could collapse careers. It could also backfire." Ava nodded. "It's not about revenge. It's about telling the truth before it dies again." Naomi looked up, eyes piercing. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Naomi smiled faintly. "Then let's raise hell." Ava leaned back, exhaling. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of what the truth might bring. She welcomed it. The darkness was real, but so was the light they were dragging it into. The story hit the press the next morning. Front page, full spread, headline screaming, "Legacy of Lies. Monroe family secret exposed." Elise sat in her apartment with Ava, the baby in her lap, the paper shaking in her hands. "There it is," she whispered. Ava sat beside her, equally stunned. They didn't hold back. Names, dates, documents, it was all there. And the public reacted instantly. Social media exploded. News vans parked outside the building. Messages flooded in, some supportive, some venomous. Elise stared at her phone. "They're calling me a liar. A fraud." Ava took her hand. "Let them scream. Let them spin. You have the truth. That's more than they'll ever have." Elise looked up, tears brimming. "You stayed with me." Ava squeezed her hand. "Always." Backlash followed quickly. The Monroe Foundation issued statements denying everything. Former staff members were paraded across news programs to discredit wild claims. Ava watched as Redmond gave an interview, calm and condescending. "These are emotional narratives, not facts," he said. Ava turned off the TV, pulse pounding. "They're gaslighting us." Elise nodded. "We knew they would." Ava's phone buzzed. It was Naomi. "We have more," she said. "Financial documents, proof of payouts and private records." Ava paced. "Let's publish it. All of it." Naomi paused. "It'll get ugly. Fast." Ava replied, steady as stone. "Good. Then we're close." The system was fighting to survive, but Ava had nothing left to lose. Only truth to win. A week later, Ava stood before a packed town hall meeting. Community members, reporters, former staffers, all abuzz. Elise sat in the front row, baby in her arms, Lena beside her. Ava stepped up to the microphone. "You've heard their denials. Now hear the truth." She laid it bare, how Elise was stolen, how the campaign silenced dissent, how power hid abuse. Gasps echoed through the room. One former nurse stood up. "I remember your mother. She begged us to help." Ava nodded, voice thick. "She died protecting her children. I'm here to make sure her voice wasn't wasted." Applause began. Soft, then swelling. The tide was turning. Ava looked out into the sea of faces. For the first time she felt seen. Heard. The fire had not consumed her, it had forged her. The fallout was swift. Investigations were launched. News stations pivoted from denial to accountability. A week later, Ava and Elise watched from a cafe as Senator Monroe's former aides were subpoenaed. "They're not just chasing headlines anymore," Elise said, eyes on the TV. Ava sipped her coffee slowly. "They're chasing justice. Finally." Elise smiled faintly. And we gave them the map. Outside, passers-by walked past the cafe window, unaware of the history changing inside. We lit the match, Ava added, but now they'll have to decide if they let the whole house burn. Elise reached over, her fingers brushing Ava's. No matter what happens next, we did it together. Ava nodded, her heart calm for the first time in weeks. Truth had taken root. At home, Ava began packing away old photos, documents, and years of pain into a single box, labeled Truth. As she taped it shut, she paused to look at a photo of her mother. Young, strong, holding Ava as a baby. "You kept us alive," she whispered. She tucked the picture gently inside. Her apartment, once cluttered with emotional wreckage, now felt lighter. Lena stopped by, carrying groceries and forgiveness. "You don't have to do all this alone," she said. Ava smiled. "I know. I'm just ready to move forward." Lena helped her place the box into storage. "You were always brave, Ava. You just didn't know it." Ava turned. "Now I do." Closure didn't mean forgetting. It meant honoring the truth while making room for life. That weekend, Elise invited Ava to the baby's naming ceremony. A small gathering in the park, just family and close friends. The baby, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was placed in Ava's arms. "We're naming her Catherine," Elise said softly. Ava's breath caught. "After our mother." Elise nodded. She brought us together, even in her silence. As the breeze rustled the trees above, Ava kissed the baby's forehead. "You're the start of everything good," she whispered. Guests clapped gently as Elise spoke to the circle. "This child is not born of secrets but of truth. That's her legacy." Ava's eyes filled, not with sorrow, but with hope. The circle was no longer broken. Ava returned to her classroom a week later, met with cheers and handmade welcome signs from her students. Her heart swelled as she stood at the whiteboard. "So, where were we?" she asked with a smile. The children erupted with laughter and hands in the air. As she guided them through reading exercises, she felt present, grounded. A student raised their hand. "Miss Monroe, are you famous now?" Ava chuckled. "I hope not. I'd rather be remembered for teaching you." At lunch, one student shyly offered her a drawing of Super Ava, cape, locket, and all. "You're brave," it said. Ava knelt, hugged the child gently, and whispered, "So are you." She wasn't just rebuilding, she was planting something new. That evening, Ava and Elise stood together at their mother's grave, finally side by side. They brought fresh flowers and the baby, now sleeping peacefully in Elise's arms. "She would have loved her," Ava said, kneeling to place the bouquet. Elise nodded. "She would have fought for her, just like she fought for us." The headstone read, "Catherine Monroe, beloved, brave, remembered." Ava traced the engraving with her fingers. "We found our way, Mom. We're together now." Elise stepped beside her. "We broke the silence. That's what she always wanted." The sisters stood in stillness, the sunset casting warm gold over the cemetery. In that moment, grief and peace danced together, and Ava finally let go of the question that had haunted her all her life. She wasn't alone. She never had been. Weeks passed. The media storm calmed, but the story left a permanent mark. Ava now found herself walking the neighborhood without feeling invisible. People nodded in recognition. Some thanked her. Others just watched with silent respect. She didn't crave the attention, only the acknowledgement. One afternoon, she passed the alley where it all began. Rain drizzled lightly, echoing that chaotic night. She paused, heart fluttering. Not from fear, but from awe. That moment had cracked her life wide open. She turned her face to the sky, letting the droplets wash over her. "You brought me to her," she whispered. "To everything." There, in that quiet space between memory and movement, Ava felt something powerful. Not an ending, but arrival. A return to herself. Ava and Elise sat in a sun-drenched bookstore, surrounded by shelves bursting with stories. "Feels strange," Elise said, bouncing Catherine gently on her knee, "to be in a place full of stories after living one no one believed." Ava grinned. "Now it's written. Even if they try to erase it, the truth is out." Elise picked up a blank journal from a nearby table. "Maybe it's time I write it all down. For Catherine." Ava nodded. "And maybe I'll start one too, for the girls who never got to know their sisters." The moment felt full circle. Surrounded by tales of love, loss, and legacy, they were no longer characters waiting to be discovered. They were authors now, narrators of their own truth. Later that week, Ava returned to the courthouse, not as a whistleblower, but as a guest. Elise had been invited to speak at a town panel on ethical adoption reform. Ava watched from the front row as her sister stepped to the podium, confidence blooming. "My story isn't unique," Elise began, "but it is finally being heard." Ava's eyes welled. It wasn't just Elise's voice up there. It was their mothers, their lost years, every silenced cry that had gone unanswered. People listened, really listened. And when the applause rose, Ava stood first. It wasn't just support. It was recognition. Elise had once been stolen, hidden away. Now she stood in full view, louder than the lie that tried to erase her. Ava took a solo trip, no destination, just miles of open road and time. She pulled over near a coastal cliff, waves crashing far below. She sat on the hood of her car, wind whipping through her hair, the ocean stretching endlessly before her. She took out her mother's photo again, the edges now soft from touch. "I found her," she said aloud. "We made it, Mom." The horizon seemed to nod in reply. No more shame. No more shadows. Ava closed her eyes and breathed deeply, the salty air cleansing everything that came before. She didn't need to know what came next. She just needed to feel this moment. Whole. Wall. Lan. Seen. Loved, from both ends of the story. Back in the city, Ava walked through a local fair, unnoticed this time, not for lack of recognition, but because the world had moved on. She bought cotton candy, smiled at a child's laughter, waved at a street musician. Then, she saw Elise waving from across the crowd, baby Catherine in her arms. Ava crossed toward her, each step light. "She's starting to say, Mama." Elise beamed. "You're next." Ava laughed. "I'll settle for Auntie." They strolled together, sun warming their shoulders. In that perfect ordinary moment, Ava realized the most radical thing she'd done wasn't exposing a scandal. It was choosing connection. Love had stitched together what history tried to unravel. And in that gentle final step forward, Ava let go, not of her past, but of the weight it once carried.